what I am interested in, you mentioned that being in combat, there were a couple of near situations and things. Can you tell me a little bit about those experiences or those incidents?
Well, there were two that were really interesting. One could have been more interesting than the other. The first incident was really certainly caught my attention. We were moving along, I say the eastern shore of the road, a series of tunnels along the road, eastern side of Lake Garda. And then those are the Dolomites, the Italian Alps in that area. And our battalion was on a point. I was standing, there were two, the mountains were fairly steep, but there was one area that we passed about as wide as, not as wide as this room, from the door to where you're sitting maybe, where it was kind of open, and it was slightly raised as high as this table, perhaps a little higher. There was just kind of a little shelf there, and I think it was Econ that was right behind us, and I was standing there at this little cut, and I don't know his name, but another lieutenant, he was a first lieutenant from Econ, he came standing. He was carrying an M1, just kind of like this, you know. I had a carbine on my shoulder, you know, and a squad of light machine gun, 30 caliber machine gun, was going up to set up a kind of a field of fire behind where this came down and see what was going on up the hill the other way. And getting the machine gun set up, and the squad leader, I guess he was the squad leader, he had moved up ahead, and all of a sudden he heard this commotion, and he started to yell and yell. And they came running back down. He says, "There's a German behind me with a pistol." And about that time, the German appeared and had a pistol trying to shoot it, and it misfired. And as soon as the German appeared, like this, I whipped the carbine off my shoulder, and as I was aiming, this lieutenant standing next to me shot him with his M1, and that created quite a stir. There was no expectation at that point to find any Germans left in there. They apparently, the conclusion was that he and 2 or 3 others had been hiding in a cave. Somehow or other they had gotten bypassed. Mm-hmm. They weren't there as frontline, troops. They were just, before they could get out of there, apparently the lead members of our company had gotten beyond, they could get out and get away. It was kind of an interesting experience. And about 2 or 3 days before the war ended, well, let me go back for a moment. Right after Felix and I joined the unit, and we had started through the tunnels. It was the first tunnel where our company commander and our radio man had been killed. Units kind of took turns, leading the battalions took turns, who would lead and so forth. They would jump each other and so forth. But we were working our way up the side of the lake. And I was able to watch one of the amphibious operations that occurred there. It did not involve our company. Quite interesting to watch that. And as we moved up,
excuse me. English right now, is it?
pardon me?
I want to do it for 13 people.
Okay, in about 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
10 minutes?
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
All right.
As we moved forward, of course, we had occasion to set up the mortars. I was in a heavy weapons company and had heavy mortars, and a section of them, or platoon, whatever. And we had the heavy machine gun, 50 caliber machine guns. And on occasion, we would have to stop and, at least set up just in case. Well, this road ran through a number of little villages and towns and so forth. And at one point, a couple of days, I guess, really 3 maybe, before the war ended, we got to a point where there was kind of opening, and the company commander who had taken over, the first lieutenant said, well, he says, take a team and go up and set up an observation point so you can direct fire on German infantry. There was kind of a plateau that spread out there along the lake at that point. The mountains still on either side, but there was some opening. So I got a crew together, and we started up the side of this road that ran. The road itself was about from there to there, on the sides of the room. From mountains over here, some big in the mountains, and the lake over here. The road was, not real wide, but it was wide enough for 2 cars to travel. And we weren't walking down the middle of the road, but nevertheless, we were on one side. And as we got about 100 yards down the road, so we're going to have to cross anyways when you get up on a kind of ridge to oversee Starbully or where it was right now. And maybe 100 yards ahead of me, not that far, more like 50 yards, I guess, an 88 round exploded. And then another one exploded on that side of the road. The Germans were walking artillery, up the road. When that first round went off, of course, we immediately stopped and said, well, and I noticed that there was a little small, very small ravine, kind of a hollowed out area over here on the other side of the road. And there were a few seconds, of course, between each round. If they had lit on the lake side, we'd have been cleaned out. I mean, no protection at all. But after that first one went off, and we took the cover we had and said, well, no, when the second one goes off, I'm going to run across that road and get in that hollowed out area before the third one goes off. Because there is that interval, it takes some time to launch for. In the meantime, my crew had scattered, as they were instructed to do, and finding cover. And when that second one went off, it was, of course, even closer. I don't know, 30 yards, maybe, whatever. And when that one went off, as soon as that went off, I got up and I raced across that little ravine, a little hollowed out place there. And I got in one corner of it, and I looked over, and in the other corner of it, here was a young guy, not a whole lot younger than I was. This man, I think he was from E Company, who had also found that spot. So he took one corner of that, and I took the other. And I said, of course, it would have been disaster if the third round had hit in the ravine, but it cleared the ravine. I consider that a very fortunate event that it cleared that. I think that was probably the closest I ever came to, that I was aware of, suffering serious harm. And it marched on up, all the way up to our command post, which is another 300 or 400 yards back down the line, before our artillery was able to silence them. But a couple rounds did go off in that command center area. I think there were some wounded, some light wounded, and some damage, but nothing really major as a result of that. But that was, that certainly caught my attention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I got back, so I had to get another crew then, and we went back up and finally by the time we got up there and got the observation point looked at, I mean, we were there maybe an hour, and time came to move out because we were moving forward fairly quickly at that point anyway. So he got the observation point established to direct some fire, but it turned out to be unnecessary. But that was a kind of an exciting experience, and that's not the word I would have used then, but anyway, I thought that's probably the closest call I had.
That was pretty close.
Yeah, it was plenty close enough.
Yeah.
Then we went on to Riva, Riva is one of the nicest little towns, right up at the northern end of Lake Garda. You were up there, I'm sure, on your trip, were you not? That's a great town. And there was a hotel, a little small hotel called the Albergo Garda. No, Albergo Dardo. Dardo was the name of the town of the hotel. He, his wife, and I don't know, a couple daughters or something. Small hotel. And the company was able to take over that hotel. At least it was big enough, it had not a lot of rooms, housed all the officers and the non-coms, and we had other facilities nearby for the rest of the company. And that was very interesting. That was kind of a nice experience then, because the war had ended and we had ended in Italy. Keep an eye on everything. Then we had to pack up from there. Unfortunately, anyway, we did. When Yugoslavs started to move in, from Yugoslavia, moving into Italy. So we packed up and we went up north of Udine someplace, and I do not remember the name of the village. But we camped out in the mountains, in a little valley, and I don't know, sheep herder up in those hills. I know there's been a war going on of some sort. He was really an old timer. Very, very pretty country up there. But we had a confrontation with Yugoslav
Tito.
His tanks at some little village, and where a bridge over the stream. We're on this side of the bridge, they're on the other side. They backed off and we went on, so that was secured. But Tito was very aggressive. You don't read a lot about that, but we weren't the only unit, but we were one of the units of our company. We went up to keep an eye on that. Then came the big news that we were going to go back to Florence. I believe it was, back to Florence. And we did bivouac there for a while, so they could get us ready to go help invade Japan. Which the thing fortunate about it, we were getting the horse laugh from all the other units. Last there and first to go back for train for this. Those are the breaks. And it ended up we had the last laugh because I can't remember now with war ended. Well, we were still. I think we had just landed in the States at Patrick Henry or some such place. Or we were just before we landed. Anyway, the war ended. Before we even got back to Camp Carson, or back to the country here.
You mentioned that you knew Felix going over. Did you form any other close bonds or friends with?
Yes, I'm still in touch with, Art Schwartz was a sergeant. In fact, in the current blizzard, there's a picture of him and myself and I can't remember another member of my unit, my section or whatever. We found an old motorboat, and we tried to recondition that thing to get it to run. This is right after we had gotten to Garda and the war ended. So there were some. We had units out, kind of loosely guarding against the partisans, but for all intents and purposes, it was pretty well over. And we worked on that sucker, trying to get that thing to run a little bit there on the lake. It's a good picture. I was surprised to see the picture.
I think I saw it.
Is that?
Yeah. I saw it.
You may have. That was kind of a fun time. So that we had good experience, but a lot. There were several that I'm still in contact contact with a couple of former lieutenants. One of them, I think, has passed away. Another, Ed Harris, was another second lieutenant, joined, I think, right after Felix Bloody and I were assigned the unit. And I haven't heard anything from him in years, and I can't find him even listed in the roster now. So I don't know if he's passed away or what. I don't know. But I've been active with the Arizona chapter of the 10th Mountain. And so I have a lot of friends from there, too. Nobody else would come to H.
Mhm.
But,
You also mentioned, Robert, about going back to Italy.
Yes.
And what was that experience like going back to those places?
that was really, really remarkable. Of course, my wife had never been there. And she was still able to travel. It was, a little difficult, but she had already suffered, but she was recovering pretty much from that. At least to some extent. And she's never recovered from it. But nevertheless, she had never been to Italy. And I was just astonished at how highly they thought of us there in the hill country, especially. And even up to Riva, it was a very moving experience. It was definitely, and the most significant thing, one of the most significant things was of course, in addition to all the company, we went to the cemetery in Florence, 3 or 4 of us, Felix Bloody, with this and that group, and that was a very moving ceremony. We found the graves of Captain Neely and the radio man, who was just a young kid, really. That was, I don't know if you've been there or not, that is such a well-kept. And it was a day when they had ceremonies that also happened to be the weekend when Bob Dole and his wife, they had come over to Italy for something, and we were visiting some of the hill towns, some of the places that the division had moved through. And he and his wife came up to one of these hill towns. I can't remember the name of it now. I know it if it were mentioned. And while we were there, and of course that was kind of a nice little reunion, for everybody. And of course we met him and spent quite a while talking with his wife. It was a very, very nice person, very, very competent. So it was a very worthwhile. In addition to the sightseeing, I saw things that I really hadn't taken the time to see, and they had the opportunity really. But we went to Pisa and Leaning Tower. Went to quite a bit of time in Florence. Went to Venice, of course. So it was good for my wife, and it was good for me to go back. And it was very, very touching how sincere, how genuinely those people in the hill country, how they feel about the 10th. Great folks.
Yes, they're very grateful. They're very grateful.
Good folks. It was a good experience. We've been going to go back again, but my wife's health hasn't been real good. We may try to go back the next time if she feels up to it. Was it 204?
It's 6.
206, of course, 206. Not 204. If we
Well,
feel we can imagine, we will.
I hope you do. If you were to sum up your time with the 10th, what would you say?
It is absolutely a first-class outfit. And my privilege to serve with them. That's it.
Parker, can you tell me your name and where you were born and the outfit that you were in the 10th Mountain Division?
I was born in Newton, Utah, March the 3rd, 1926. My name is William Duane Parker, and I was in Company A, 86th, 2nd Platoon, 3rd Squad of A Company.
All right. And where do you remember when you joined and where you did your basic training?
I graduated from high school around the 26th of May in that area of 1944. And I was inducted in the Army in Fort Douglas, Utah on the 13th of June of 1944, and went to Camp Walters, Texas for basic training. One basic training was, I guess about over. There came a notice on the bulletin board that you could enlist in, or volunteer for the 10th Mountain Division, and that sounded good to me. And so you had to have 3 letters of recommendation. So I wrote home to my mother, and she got the 3 letters of recommendation, and I turned in the application. And just prior to the end of my basic training, I was informed that I was to report to the 10th Mountain Division in Camp Swift, Texas. And I knew they were in Camp Swift because when I was traveling on troop train from Fort Douglas to Camp Walters, our troop train was on the same siding with troop trains from the 10th Mountain, and I talked to some of those people, and they said they were going to Camp Swift for flatland maneuvers. And so I reported at Camp Swift on the 11th of November, and we left Camp Swift for Norfolk, West Virginia to go overseas on Thanksgiving Day.
When you were in Camp Swift, and we were just there just a few days ago,
Yeah.
Did that bring back any memories or anything you can recollect about Camp Swift?
As far as I'm concerned, Camp Swift had changed so much in appearance that I don't remember anything. It didn't look familiar to me at all. So, but I understand there was some great changes that have taken place there. They used to be a lot bigger, and I guess a lot of buildings, and I didn't see any of those when we were out there the other day.
But did it bring back any memories, or I should say, what can you recall about your days at Camp Swift?
Well, my days at Camp Swift were so short. I was there from the 11th of November to Thanksgiving Day, which would have been about the 26th, so I was only there 12, 15 days. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have much experience in Camp Swift. It was still kind of warm in Texas at that time. I'd been in Camp Walters and sweat tons of water for the period of time that I was there for basic training.
Well, you probably spent about as much time on board ship going from Virginia to Naples than you were while you were at Camp Swift. What was it like being on board ship during that time? Any memories of your travel across the Atlantic?
Well, about the 2nd or 3rd day out, we hit a storm, and the ship was so overloaded, and we went on the USS Monocattini, which was a luxury liner that had been converted to a troop ship. And man, I tell you, down in those holds, it was hot, and that rough weather, rough sea, everybody was sick. I was sick for about 2 or 3 days. And then after that, I spent every minute I could on deck, and that helped. I didn't have any trouble with that.
Yeah, I understand a lot of individuals got
And the
sick.
food
on
wasn't
that.
the best either on that ship, or at least I didn't think so.
I know that the 10th then eventually went up to Riva Ridge, Belvedere area, and do you remember what it was like on that first day when you participated in that, or what? How did you participate in that first day?
Well, we landed in Naples on, I think, the 23rd of December, and went from there up to Pisa, and then we went somewhere else up a little further above Pisa, and then we went online at Curciola on the 8th of January. And then, of course, so we weren't doing any fighting there. We were just, it was a holding situation. And then I think the attack on Riva Ridge was 21st or 22nd February, about in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, they trucked us to within some distance. I don't know exactly the distance, in the dark, and we hiked into those villages at the bottom of Riva Ridge. I was in the A Company 2nd Platoon, and they detached us from the rest of our company. Company A was basically back on the back end of the ridge, and where we were, it was out on the very point, just up from Rocco
Cornetta, or?
Yeah, Rocco Cornetta, and we were out there. We were a platoon only out on that point, and we hiked. When we got off the trucks that night, we hiked in the dark with our pack and everything, you know, and went down into the little village of Farney and just knocked on the people's doors and moved in with them, and stayed there all that night and all the next day. And when it got dark the next night, we started climbing Riva Ridge. And we got up there about, well, just as it was breaking day, and there was a kind of a foggy mist up there when we first got up there. And we run into some resistance right off, and then we, along, I don't know just how much time, a little bit of time went by, and our platoon leader, Lieutenant Luce, he came to one of the guys and said, "I want you to come with me. We're going to go scout around the point of the ridge here." And they left, and pretty soon the lieutenant come running back, out of breath. They'd run into some Germans, and Godwin, who was the soldier that went with him, had been shot, and they chased Luce around, and he came back up. And funny about it, we didn't hear the shot, but he was the first one killed in our outfit. And then later on during the night, we started to receive counterattacks. And the next, well, there was quite a bit of activity, and we had driven the Germans off, and they were trying to get back, because that was the key point of Riva Ridge, because that's where they had their artillery observers, so that when they attacked Mount Belvedere, without us controlling that ridge, they could just shoot the heck out of our people. In fact, I understood they had tried to take Belvedere's a time or two before we got there, and that was the problem. They couldn't. And I think the Germans were so surprised to have us come up over that steep, and that is a very steep ridge. I'll tell you, that is rugged country. And they were, I don't think they thought that that would ever happen. But we had people that were well trained and knew what they were doing, and they had the will to take them, and they did. And we were cut off. My platoon was cut off up there for 3 days. The Germans kept counterattacking and kind of got around us, and we were about out of ammunition and food and everything else. And Colonel Hampton, I think they had tried, from what I understood, to break through to us a couple of times, and that hadn't happened. They hadn't been able to do it. And Colonel Hampton, he said, I'll get through to them, and he took a platoon or a group, I don't know how big for that, and he came through and got to us, and then we were relieved, and we went off the ridge at that time.
I have always been amazed at what you did. I had the opportunity to look at River Ridge, and it is quite something for you guys to have done that. From there, I know there were other battles along the way up into the Po Valley. Is there anything else that sticks out in your mind during that offensive there up into the Po?
Well, I might say one more thing about River Ridge. We went back in '85. They had a reunion. It was 40 years after the end of the war. And my wife went with me. Mm-hmm. And we had the opportunity to walk from where the 8 Company was back on the far end of the ridge. Her and I hiked all the way across the top of that ridge over there and found the foxhole that I had when I was there.
Wow.
That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we had it, and I'll tell you, I thought we were going to lose our lives getting off in there. It was so steep, and it was so, the grass and everything was slick, and we didn't have proper shoes to be doing what we were doing, or no ropes or nothing, you know. And sometimes we'd get to sliding down that ridge, and you just grab onto a vine or whatever to keep from losing complete control. My wife, I'm sure she thought she was going to die up there. But we made it down, but that was a real experience for us. Yeah, there was, and I can't name all the areas where we fought, but on the next time that we went on the offensive, it was on my 19th birthday, the 3rd of March, and we pushed off, and we had a lot of constant battle from then on for it seemed like a week or two. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that day on my birthday, that was when Toger Toko, the world champion ski jumper, was in our platoon, and the day he was killed, he and Takola was carrying 2 bazooka rounds, and he got hit with shrapnel, and it set off those 2 bazooka rounds, and it killed both of them. And I was just down on the side of the ridge from where they were, and hit Toko's helmet rolled down the hill right to where I was, and then just shortly after that, I heard Tacoma had been killed up there on the top of the ridge. But that day, I started 7 foxholes that day. We just move, and as soon as you stop, you start digging in, you know, because you don't know how long you're going to be there. Had a blister that was the full size of the palm of my hand right there, and with sharp shovels, you know, and your hand was on top. And that was really a tough day that day.
Yeah, that's something very memorable for your 19th birthday. And
Yeah, I remember my 19th birthday very well. I had another experience along while we were in that course of battles along through there. One day I was told to take a message up to one of the other officers up on another part of the ridge or draw. And as I was going up this draw, all of a sudden I heard this whirling sound, and I looked up, and here come an artillery shell going end over end. I guess it hit a tree and didn't go off, but it disturbed its trajectory. I hit the ground, and that thing landed just right so close. So that was pretty lucky.
yeah, because otherwise you wouldn't have heard it. And
No.
yeah.
And then I didn't go to the Po Valley. When we got off the line from that series of encounters, I had developed a hernia, and I was sent back to the 33rd General Hospital in Leghorn and had a hernia operation. So I missed the Po Valley. I didn't join the backup with the outfit until the war was over.
And when you rejoined them, were you still in Italy, or?
Yes, we were up on the border of Switzerland and Yugoslavia, up in the Alps there.
You probably developed some real close bonds with some of your other foxhole buddies. And does anyone stick out in particular? I know you mentioned some people you lost, but are any other names?
Oh, everyone in Company A. We have, to this day, we have I don't know, it's a close relationship, I'll tell you, very close. Oh golly, the captain, our company commander, Bill Needner, names keep slipping my mind. And he was terrific, and Lieutenant Luce, I think every man in that platoon would have followed him anywhere he wanted to go, because he was gutsy and cared and was a great leader. And most of the fellows were just that way. I had a close friend from Utah, Dale Archibald. We shared foxholes. I had a friend that I developed from Lubbock, Texas, and he and I shared foxholes and just close relationships forever. I could name just about every person in the platoon, and the relationships are all the same. It's just, and our wives, since the war ended and we've been having these reunions, they've developed the same kind of camaraderie as the fellows have, and it's just, this has been the most disappointing reunion because we've had so few here. Our company has usually had more than any other company in the outfit at these reunions. And Of course, the low numbers, we may have had more this time, but I'm not sure. I never did find out for sure just what the counts were, but we only had, there was 11 of us here this time. And that's the lowest number. I was disappointed in the numbers. But we've had a lot die, and I guess that's, time's coming to all of us. But
And I think that's another reason why I really appreciate you spending this time to record this, so that this will live forever, and we want others to be able to know what that was like. Can you tell us what you did after the war? What did you do after the war?
oh, went home and went to work. My father died when I was 15, and my mother, I always felt needed help. I had two younger brothers, and I went to Utah State University for a quarter, and I decided, oh, I've got to make money. And that was the dumbest thing I ever did in my life, was not stay in school. But I felt I needed to help her. I should have stayed in school. And after that, when I was only home 3 days, and man had a grocery store in the town. He wanted me to come to work for him, and so I needed a job, and I learned to cut meat. I was cutting meat. He had a locker plant, and I cut meat and that for his locker plant. I was with him a couple of years, and then we run a milk route, a home delivery milk route. We bought the milk from the dairy and delivered it, did all the collecting and everything, and financed it. Did that for, I don't know, a couple of years, I guess, 3 years. Then I went to work for Continental Baking Company, Wonder Bread.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for them for 5.5 years. And then I went to work for Gerber Baby Food as a sales representative. I worked for them for 34 years, retired from them in 1990.
You spent this time with the 10th, and if you were to sum up your time with the 10th, what would you say?
Well, being I survived the ordeal. It was a growing up experience. It was a good experience. I have no regrets about it at all. But I was one of the lucky ones. I survived, and the relationship and everything that we developed there has been important in my life. And it's been good and helped me grow up, and I appreciate that. When you get in a battle situation in war, you soon find out you have to be very responsible and grow up. There's just no two ways about it.
Well, Duane, thank you very much. Thank you for spending this time. And unless you have anything else you would like to share, this was, thank you.
Well, I can't think of anything offhand, so appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I tell you, that's